Hello there, my name is Chris Wahl. We're going to talk about picking up new skills for your technical tool chest because skills are what pay the bills. So first off, who am I? I'm a VCDX. I write at wallnetwork.com. I have a podcast called Data Knots. Check it out. We bust silos. And I teach at pluralsight.com. Also, I have a book called Networking for VMware Administrators. I will say that it's a pretty good book, and all the royalties are going to charity. So even if you hate it, don't give it a 1-star review on Amazon because you made a great donation to a great cause. So talking about skills and how to pick up skills is something that I think about a lot, because when we're talking about technology, it's a downward moving escalator. When we start to learn about technology, we're moving up that escalator. We're walking up, we're gaining skills. But at any point, if we rest on our laurels or we just start letting our skills atrophy, then our skills go down because technology is always moving forward. So there's not one point where you're like, okay, I've learned everything, I'm good, and I'm done. You constantly have to evolve your skill set. So that's where I'm kind of thinking about learning new skills. Having done teaching and instructional courses and having done a number of certifications, I'm kind of a cert junkie. This is something that's been on my mind a lot. So I'm going to share my 3 techniques for learning and staying relevant with your skill set. So this is my model, identify, learn, and teach. For everything that I want to do in life when it comes to my professional career, I try to identify what I don't know, which is probably the hardest part, right? You don't know what you don't know. Therefore, you have to figure out what the technologies are and what you have to learn, and then you learn what those gaps are. So you find out what you don't know, and then you learn them. And then you teach it to other people, because the best way to really know that you have these skills down pat is to pass them along to somebody. And quite frankly, a lot of people have passed along skills to me, and probably you. And so if you're able to pass that along to the next person, you're continuing the cycle, and that's what makes the VMware community so awesome. So the first thing that I do from the identify what I don't know perspective is use an RSS feed. I read tons of stuff every day. I prioritize what I read. It's not a luxury, it's a requirement. So I use something called Feedly. If you are also using Feedly, I have a Google link here. The slides will be shared and it'll be on this video. You can download all of my RSS feed links. You just go into Feedly, click Organize, and then import OPML file, and you'll have all of my feeds. So if you don't have one already, this is a good starting point. As you're going through the feeds, you can use the save for later if you're short for time, like maybe you're on the train or the bus, start saving some cool links, and then put something on your calendar to go ahead and read through them and make sure that you understand what's new, what's hot, what's interesting, what are people talking about. And it's a good way to see, hey, does anyone heard of this about this technology, and kind of, use that crowdsourcing that is Twitter and Facebook and stuff to figure out what's worth learning. Also, check the certification blueprints for things like Novell certified, not Novell, never mind, for whatever else, VCP, whatever. The blueprints will tell you specifically what you need to know from the vendor's perspective. So if you're kind of curious what the technologies are around Cisco or VMware or HP or whatever it is, check their blueprints and figure out what they want you to know, because that's a great way to find out what you don't know. And in fact, when I made my CCNA course for Pluralsight, that's what I did. I went through the exam topics list, I figured out what my gaps were, and I wrote those down to make sure that I could start learning them so that I could teach them in my course. The other last thing to find those gaps is go to events and meetups. This is pretty important. I try to go to one a week in my Austin area, so I use meetup.com, Lanyard, and Conferize. And those are pretty good for figuring out what are the events that are going on, especially the smaller ones. Because a thing like a VMworld, it's hard, it's expensive, you got to travel, but if it's local and you can just go to a meetup of 20, 30 people, pick their brains, see what they're doing, it's like a VMware user group. It's a great way to figure out, in my case, I go to DevOps and Puppet and SaltStack and just figure out what are people doing and what is worth my time so that I have relevant skills. Then, now that I know kind of what I want to learn, it's time to start learning it. And if you've got some cash, a home lab's great. I've had a home lab for probably the last 6-7 years. I call it like owning a boat, but without being a boat. So it's a constant money pit. If you've ever owned a boat, it's a lot of money to maintain. A home lab can be that way. It doesn't have to be, but just remember that it's a long-term commitment, right? You're investing in you, and there's no better dividends than your own skill set, right? It's always going to pay off when you invest in yourself, especially early on. A lot of people are like, oh, it's this amount of money to start off, and that's a large investment to get off the ground. But remember, you're investing in you, and plus, home labs are kind of fun. Finally, squeezing value from a home lab doesn't mean you've invested bajillions of dollars. Make sure that something that you're going to build for your home lab meets your requirements. In the example of this photo, that was my first home lab, just some beat up Dell server, a little shuttle server box that I got off eBay, and some little crappy network switch. I think it cost $1,000 US total, and I used it for years. And I basically came to my family and said, this is something I want to invest in, let's do it. And breaking things is how you learn. So go ahead and put a little bit of bucks into it. Alternatives to that, a lot of partners have hands-on labs like VMware and Cisco. and there's things like Revelo, where you can actually use a public cloud as your lab. Just be cognizant that these alternatives do cost money in some way, shape, or form. Like, as an example here, if I wanted to run my home lab as a Revelo lab, it would be $10 an hour, so about $95,000 a year. So, once you get to a certain point, you might want some private equipment. And then, as I'm learning, I create a learning path, right? And this is this great French quote that I have here from Louis Pasteur. Basically translates to, chance favors the prepared mind. So eventually, people that are prepared to learn are going to have a better experience and retain more knowledge. And so I pick those gaps, the things I don't know. I set goals, specific goals based on them. I set a schedule. Like when I first did the VCP, I said, I'm going to get certified in 2 months. I set a goal. I didn't know if it was realistic or not, but I kind of backed into it based on my goals. Then I used a system called Pomodoro to learn. And at each point, which is roughly weekly for me, I review how I'm doing to adjust my schedule and my goals. So study sheets are a good way to do this. This is what I started doing for the VCAP courses, and these are freely available on my website. I listed all the gaps, what I wanted to learn, and I tracked all the items of learning in there so that I could see how I was doing. I was tracking my goals, setting my schedule based on that. The Pomodoro technique is pretty cool. It's based off the word tomato, because he had a little timer shaped like a tomato. It's an alternation between focused bursts of learning and breaks. So you learn for 25 minutes, you stop, you disengage, and then you take a break for 5 minutes. I usually walk around, stand up, stretch, do something like that, and then return to learning. During this process, turn off all your phones, your Twitter, your social media. You just want to be focused on really deep learning for short bits of time. That's because your brain gets tired, and beyond 25 or so minutes, you're not learning anymore. So you need to take these breaks. And so for each point in my schedule, I'll issue Pomodoros to learn some kind of new skill, play with something in the lab, read a document, read part of a book, and then take those breaks. Remember, turn off your distractions and sync this with your family and friends so they know that you're going to be busy during this time. So put it on your calendar. This is an example of a free website called tomato-timer.com. So you don't even have to invest any money. You just go here, you can click Pomodoro, it'll set the clock for 25 minutes, put it as one of your tabs in Chrome or Firefox, and it'll beep when it's done. Then you can hit short break for a 5-minute break or long break for a 10-minute break. Use that point to, eat a snack, walk around, that kind of thing. It really helps learning. You'll find that you'll learn 3 to 4 times faster than if you just try to sit down and just eat all the content because your brain gets tired. The last part is teaching the content, right? So one of the cool things, even if you're kind of thinking, what's in it for me? Having people look at what you've learned and look at how you've learned it is a great way to get feedback on if you're right, wrong, pivot, maybe you're missing something, because fresh eyes bring fresh questions, right? They're going to look at it a little bit different than I do, and so I like people to review my content. That's why I like to blog. I like to say, here's what I think about it, and sometimes people say, you're dead wrong, you got it wrong, this is actually the right way, and I go, oh crap, I never thought about that. And frankly, if you can't teach it, you don't really know it. I'm a firm believer that if you can explain something to someone else in simple terms enough to get them on board, then you really know it. I have a list of examples here of things that you can do, like holding a community session at a VMUG or setting up a vBeers. There's a whole list, but imagine how much knowledge you've gained because someone else did this process. Chances are tons of your knowledge has come from blogs and white papers and just various technical things on the internet that people have shared with you. So be that someone. It's not hard. Everyone that's done this had not done it at some point in their life. They all had to start from scratch. So therefore, 100% of people that are sharing their knowledge today at one point didn't know how to do it and had never done it before. As an example, at one point I didn't know VMware NSX at all, and now I'm certified as a design expert. And this was my mentor, this guy named Elver Sosa. He sat down with me over the course of 3 or 4 months. He shared his knowledge, and now I'm much better for it, and I was able to write blog posts to share my knowledge. And so that circle continues, and it feels really good to learn something new from someone who's passionate about it. So that's all I have. This slide is available on slideshare.net/Christopher Wahl. You can get more stuff on wallnetwork.com for the blogs, technical deep dives, etc. Check out the book Networking for VMware Administrators and pluralsight.com and datanautspodcast.com for my podcast and all of my Pluralsight courses. Thank you.